What's up everybody, and welcome to the Overstimulation Station. My name is Josh Cannon, and today we are going to be cooking something very special indeed. We are going to be making an SNES Classic, the still hard to find elusive system developed by Nintendo. If you're watching this video, you already know what the Super Nintendo is. You know about the Super Nintendo games, so I don't really need to explain, but for some reason, Nintendo put out the NES Classic and the SNES Classic and decided to make them super rare and hard to find because I guess they don't like money. So screw them, we're gonna make our own SNES Classic. I happen to have all the ingredients right here, so let's get started. The first ingredient is Contra III, the Alien Wars. That goes into the pot. Contra III was an instant classic when I first played it. Now, I did not play it growing up as a kid, but when I did get it, I instantly felt the same connection as I did when I played the first Contra for the NES. Great game. It totally brought the series into the 16-bit era. Awesome game. Great to add to the collection. Our next ingredient on the list is going to be Donkey Kong Country, which was developed by Rare, and the graphics took the Super Nintendo to the next level. It looks fantastic. The game is so full of playability and replayability. The controls feel great. Great action, adventure style platforming game. Although, I will say that Donkey Kong Country 2 was my favorite of the Donkey Kong Country series. Still a fantastic game. Our next ingredient is going to be Earthbound, the critically acclaimed cult classic Earthbound. Now, I swear, growing up, nobody ever mentioned this game or really talked about it, but in the last 10 years, it has become a cult classic and just a great RPG. It's set in the 90s instead of most RPGs that are either like way in the past or way in the future. You use everyday objects like a bat to hurt enemies, and you have like a debit card to use money instead of gold or whatever. Developed by Nintendo, just a solid title. Gotta have Earthbound in the mix. Our next ingredient in this souffle is going to be Final Fantasy III, developed by Square Enix. And this game is heralded as one of the best games on the Super Nintendo, one of the greatest RPGs of all time. I gotta admit, not that into RPGs. I just started getting into them more in the past few years, but growing up, I definitely hated RPGs. I did not understand the whole random encounters with enemies and the grinding aspect, but anyway, this game I probably know the least about on the list. I just haven't played it yet, but it's supposedly a great game, great music. Square Enix can do no wrong, according to most people, so that's got to go in the souffle. Up next we have FZero. This is a racing game, and I gotta tell you guys, this did not age very well in my opinion. This looks like a game that would come for free on like your Windows 95 desktop PC, along with Minesweeper and Solitaire. It's a fun game still, just graphically not much to look at, but you gotta have it in there. Solid first-party Nintendo title. Up next, Kirby's Dream Course. Such an underrated game. I know what you're thinking. Golf, really? Weird choice to throw on to the SNES Mini. It's not. It has the premise of golf, but it is so much more fun than your average golf game. This is one of the easiest games on this whole SNES Mini for me to just sit down and actually play casually just to, you know, relax or whatever. Great game. Up next in our mix, we have Kirby Superstar. Now this is supposedly 8 games in one. Another solid Kirby title. I like the Kirby titles that they included on the SNES Mini. They included this one in the Kirby's Dream Course. They left out Kirby's Avalanche, which is just kind of a puzzle game, and Kirby's Dream Land 3, which honestly, kind of lackluster. Played through it about a year ago, was not impressed. Don't know why it commands so much money. Get this game instead, or do what I'm doing and just make an SNES Mini by having these ingredients, which we will get to the final product later. You know, it's a cooking show, by the way, so you know we have to like pace ourselves with the ingredients. Up next, oh my God, Mega Man X, probably one of my favorite games of all time. Developed by Capcom, my favorite game publisher and developer of all time. Mega Man X took the Mega Man series to the next level. I cannot say enough good things about this game. Obviously, if it wasn't for the fact that I've already beaten this game 5 billion times, it would probably be higher up on my list, but I've just played it so much. I'm more of a fan of Mega Man X2 and Mega Man X3. Classic choice to put on this console and to have in this ingredients list. Up next, we have The Secret of Mana. You know, honestly, I gotta say, I know probably the second least about this game as well, although upon playing through this game in preparation for this cooking show, this seems like it has a lot of promise. It seems less RPG oriented than, say, Final Fantasy or Earthbound, so excited to play this one more. But again, this is another Squaresoft game, so you know, they like the RPGs. Up next, gotta have Star Fox. Star Fox was a new franchise for Nintendo that first made its appearance on the Super Nintendo. Looking at it now, did not age well. Really did not age well. It has those wireframed graphics, and to look at it now, it's if you didn't grow up in that era, if you did not grow up with a Super Nintendo, you might laugh at Star Fox because it does not look like something that somebody would legitimately play nowadays and say, oh yeah, this is a great game. Give it a chance, pretty fun game, did not age the best. Geez, you know, Street Fighter II Turbo, what can you say about Street Fighter that hasn't already been said? Again, another Capcom classic. Street Fighter II basically started the competitive fight scene, which still is going strong to this day. A lot of people say Street Fighter II Turbo is the best iteration of the Street Fighter series. I'm more of a fan of Super Street Fighter II, where you have T-Hawk and Fei Long and all that. But anyway, the classic game. I mean, really, just they're hitting it out of the park with this ingredients list here. Up next, we have Super Castlevania 4. Good lord, man, why didn't I play this game as a kid? I never grew up playing this, only beat it recently. As soon as you turn the game on, the controls are so tight, you are so in the game, it is so solid that, you know, if you're any kind of fan of action games, platforming games, you gotta give this one a try. So this is definitely going into the pot here. Up next, we have Super Ghouls and Ghosts, another Capcom classic. This game is hard as a bitch, but it is well worth it. Very fun game. Super bright, vibrant graphics. Another action-adventure game. This is a lot of people's favorite game. It's got that big of a cult following. It began on the NES, and this is the Super Nintendo 16-bit iteration of it. I always loved seeing the 8-bit games being transferred to the 16-bit era because they just looked that much better, that much more amazing, and that's another example of that. Up next, we got Super Mario Kart. I mean, you know, it's a classic, you know, it's another franchise that was started on the Super Nintendo. A lot of people love this game. Again, gotta say, hasn't aged that well in my opinion. I never really cared for the Super Nintendo Super Mario Kart game. But, you know, that's just me. Let's talk about Biker Mice from Mars, okay? You want a great racing game on the Super Nintendo? Don't waste your time with any of these kind of games, even though that's not a bad game. Biker Mice from Mars, such an underrated hidden gem, dare I say? So give that game a try. It's quite amazing. Super Mario RPG. Probably my least exciting selection in this recipe, my least favorite ingredient. Yeah, when I was growing up, I remember this game being released. I remember commercials for it, and I was like, what's RPG mean? As a kid, I didn't know, so I just equated RPG meaning it's not gonna be a regular action-adventure game. It's gonna be something that you don't understand and you're not going to like. Why are there menu drop-downs that are coming up when enemies show up? Why are they just sitting there in place waiting for me to attack them? I just didn't understand how RPGs equaled fun. But this is supposedly solid game. A lot of people are a big fan of it, so it goes into the pot. And I mean, it's a Mario game, so what do you want? Super Mario World. You know, do I need to say anything? I spent hours upon hours playing this game as a kid, trying to unlock all the secrets, beating Star Road. So many Easter eggs in this game. Just a classic. I mean, there's nothing else you can really say about besides that. We're on holy territory right now. We're on holy ground. Super Metroid is probably one of my favorite games of all time. Just how they were able to make a game seem so creepy and ominous, and the music and all the adventuring aspects and the weapon upgrades and the monsters and the ending. It's just a certified classic game. I love this game. I mean, it's just, I have no words for how much I love this game. It's why Samus is indelibly tattooed on my arm forever. That's gotta be the main ingredient in this. And you know, if that game wasn't enough, then we get Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. If you made me choose between Metroid and Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past and Mega Man, I can't choose. There are too many classics on this system. This game is incredible. The lush world that you fight in, you know, the Hyrule just looks amazing. The enemies, the sprites, just everything looks awesome. The top-down perspective gives it a completely different, adventurous, non-linear, open world feel. There's so many things to discover in this game. If you don't like this game, I don't care if you're not a fan of 2D, 16-bit era graphics. If you can't find something you don't like about this game, or if you can't find something you like about this game, you don't like games, okay? I'm just saying that. You don't like games, you don't like fun. Legend of Zelda, just another main ingredient. Our final game, Yoshi's Island, Super Mario World 2, as they tagged it at the top, kind of shoehorned that title in there. Gotta say, this is one of those games that really loved as a kid, really played the hell out of it growing up. It has not aged well. I don't know, I go back to it now, and it still looks good, but I just don't like the gameplay anymore. It just feels a little stale to me. Maybe I played it too much growing up. It just doesn't have the replay value of the other games, but that's fine. It's still a classic game. Totally understand why they put it on here. All right, so now we got all our ingredients in the pot here. So we're gonna put it in the oven. Sorry about that. We're gonna put it in the oven. Oh, dropped one of our ingredients, so that's fine. I'm gonna put that in the pot here. Oh yeah, another ingredient in making an SNES Classic is a Super Nintendo. Gotta have the Super Nintendo, just a regular Super Nintendo. So we're gonna put that in there too. And we are going to bake it at 400 degrees. And we're gonna do that for about 20 minutes. And when we come back, we should have a SNES Classic. So let's go to that now. Oh shit, you know what I just forgot? I left out an ingredient. Super Punch-Out. Oh my God. You mean to tell me out of all those games that I own that go into the ingredients list, that's the one game I never bought, Super Punch-Out? I have no idea why that is. Well, you know, in cooking, a lot of times you can substitute ingredients, like say you don't have any butter, so you use margarine because it's less fattening. I think we should be able to do that here. So let's substitute Final Fight, because, you know, the NES Mini honestly is really lacking in the beat 'em up genre as it is. So that should be just fine. Oven's hot. All right, time's up. It should be ready to go. And when I open up, we should have an SNES Mini in here if it all went according to plan. Oh, here's the big reveal. Look at that, gentlemen. and ladies, look at this. Fresh, I mean it's a little warm, but fresh out the kitchen, a brand new SNES Classic. That's awesome. I can't believe this actually worked. So, without further ado, let's go analyze this thing and put it through its paces. All right, so this is the SNES Classic, or Mini as it's referred to. Here is a side-by-side comparison of the two systems. As you can see, they nearly perfectly scaled this thing to match the original. I mean, it looks just like, even down to the buttons here. Like, this even has a little click sound. I don't know if you can hear that or not, but even the little click sound is there. I mean, they did such a fantastic job on this thing. It's definitely a lot. Some people have said, oh, well, it's like a 3D printed version, blah, blah, blah. No, it's more higher quality than a 3D printed version. The front portion flips down, and that's what you actually plug the controllers into. This is the only part of the SNES Classic that feels cheap. Like, I feel like this little door that flips down will definitely break off in time. That's my one concern about this thing as far as the outer construction. And then on the back, it's got an HDMI port, which goes to your TV, and it's got a little mini USB port, which is how you power the thing. The controllers on these things feel very good, actually. Seems to have more of a matte finish. It's got like a rougher surface than the original Super Nintendo controller. Here's an original Super Nintendo controller. Here is the NES Classic. Same exact size. Like I said, I mean, there aren't many brand spanking new Super Nintendo controllers, original ones to compare it to, so maybe the original SNES controller had that matte finish as well, but this one feels smoother, and obviously my buttons are much more worn in on this controller as opposed to this one here, but it feels fantastic. Although in the cord length wars that went on with the NES Classic, the main complaint, the original Super Nintendo controller cord is about 1.5 feet longer than the SNES Classic, so it's still not quite long enough for my liking, but controller-wise, feels great. The system boots up to a colorful and sleek-looking menu screen where each game's box art is displayed. There are a couple of options at the top of the screen, such as legal notices, a QR code that takes you to Nintendo's website for complete scans of all the game manuals, a limited options menu, and a display option. Under the display option, there are 3 different filters you can select for your games. The default option is the 4:3 aspect ratio. The second display option is a pixel perfect option that apparently smooths out the pixels to a certain degree, but I honestly could not see much of a difference at all. Your third option is a CRT filter, which adds pretty convincing looking scan lines onto the screen as to emulate the look of those old-fashioned CRTs, which these games were originally intended to be played on. You also have these borders you can add to fill up the blank voids left by your 16:9 HD TV aspect ratio, but I honestly found them to be distracting and I don't use them. There are 4 save states for each game, which is very generous and super convenient. This allows you to save your game anywhere at any time and resume it at a later point. You also have a rewind option. If you should die in a game or make a wrong move, you can just rewind that part and do it again. This is very helpful, but if you want the original experience of playing these games, don't use this. Be a real gamer. When baking this SNES souffle, I pretty much gave my quick take on all 21 games that come on this console, except 2. The first game is Super Punch-Out, which is the only game that was included on this collection that I didn't already own the physical cart for. Upon playing it, honestly, I hate it. The first opponent was alright, but by the time I got to this fat fuck, my nerves had been sufficiently strained trying to do any damage to him that I just gave up. When you put a game like Super Punch-Out next to mega titans like The Legend of Zelda and Super Metroid, it's like, Why would I waste a single second playing this piece of shit when I could be playing games that are actually good? The second game that did not make it into my Super Nintendo souffle was Star Fox 2, because it never got an official release in the US. Star Fox 2 definitely has more bells and whistles than its predecessor, but it's still Star Fox, so if the original game isn't much fun for you, then neither will this game be. The story of how Star Fox 2 was omitted from the Super Nintendo's original release is a very interesting story, however, that I recommend you look into. So that was my review of the SNES Mini. I hope you enjoyed it. I know there are 2 million videos that are doing the same exact review, but you know what? This is my take on it, so fans of my channel should have at least enjoyed this. I want to thank Eddie Romero for sending me this SNES Mini. I would have never gotten one on my own. They are impossible to find still if you want to pay regular retail price for it anyway. So thanks again to him. And, you know, a lot of people ask, if you've already got the games, why did you even need this? Well, honestly, it's like a little Super Nintendo trophy for me. I love the Super Nintendo. It's my favorite Nintendo console ever made. So, of course, I'm going to shell out $80 for something that is well worth more than that. For what you get, if you don't have these games, so worth it. So convenient to just plug into your HD TV and go. The save states are amazing. There's just so many features that are just so worth the money. It feels like an incredible value. So anyway, enough blathering on about this this awesome piece of technology that Nintendo came out with. I wish I could get an NES Classic. If anyone out there has any leads on how I can get an NES Classic, I would be very happy. But I want it at the regular retail price. I'm not paying any more than the regular retail price for any of these. So anyway, I've talked long enough. Have a good rest of your day and or night.